Yes, welcome. Thanks for coming by to what my colleagues lovingly refer to as Till's Fluffy Talk. I shall try to make it as little fluffy as I can make it, but it will definitely not be technical. So if you're looking for that, I'm sure there's at least two of my colleagues doing highly technical talks somewhere else. Not that I want to get rid of you. Happy to see so many of you here. How many of you are primarily suits, business people, not technical people? Yeah, come on, you know, we're amongst ourselves here. You can come out. Okay, so still most of you are technical, right, in your primary role? Yes? Okay, yeah. Well, it's that kind of a conference, right? All right, so who am I? I'm Till. I'm with KDAB for 10 years now. This week, actually, precisely. I used to be a programmer, as soon as said. And then because all of the other programmers in KDAB didn't want to do it, I started putting on a suit and going out talking to our customers. And that's what I do all the time now. I'm the managing director of KDAB for Germany, and I'm responsible for services globally. So I run the projects at KDAB, basically. Okay, so to the topic of this talk, why does Qt matter in the big picture? One motivation I had for doing this talk was what you pointed out earlier, which is that many people get asked that question, why should we use Qt and not go to .NET or something else? So I don't know how many of you have been asked that question in your organization, whether you're trying to introduce Qt or whether you're defending Qt against the encroaching beasts from the north, native iOS development or whatever. So this is a question that comes up. But also if you're looking to invest in Qt in some way as part of the ecosystem, as a partner or as a user of Qt, you might also want to ponder some of these questions. So I've been trying to get together what I think on the topic. And for structure, I want to talk about a little bit of the big picture. So what's the the surrounding ecosystem that we're dealing with in terms of technology at large? I've titled that one "Interesting Times" because I think there are very interesting times. Were any of you in the presentation Nick and I did on security last night? Actually, yesterday afternoon. A couple of you, yeah. So some of that stuff that we discussed there is relevant, but there are a few more points. We'll look at a little bit at the desktop, the competitive landscape there, the same for embedded and for mobile. So what else is out there? How do we compare, at least as far as the big picture perception of it is? I'll look a little bit at risks of using Qt and of not using Qt, and some opportunities that I see emerging for Qt. Actually, to give you the summary in the beginning, I think we have a pretty good all-round situation, so I'm not particularly worried about working for a company that does Qt and nothing but Qt. So interesting times indeed. There's a lot of change afoot. I don't know where you're coming from, whether you're primarily desktop or embedded or mobile, but whichever one you're in, it is likely changing very rapidly right now. There are a bunch of big picture developments that affect us in a variety of ways. Maybe the biggest one I've entitled Mobile Revolution. That means a lot of things. It means that mobile devices are just becoming ubiquitous. They're becoming extremely widespread. Everybody has one or two or three, and I really mean everybody, including my 6-year-old. So I don't know how many of your children have smartphones. Or I live in the middle of Berlin, so it's maybe a little bit different. But it's completely ubiquitous. Everybody has them. Everybody uses them. And there are lots and lots and lots and lots of them, which has impact on hardware and software. It means that things that used to be rare and expensive, like maybe GSM chips, are now so ubiquitous that they become really, really cheap, which makes it possible to actually build them into devices where you maybe couldn't afford it before. So connectivity by way of that is becoming much, much cheaper. And that also means that the whole, Internet of Things thing, we are connecting everything to the internet, that's actually becoming a reality. And that's driven by price, at least in my opinion. The same is true for touchscreens to some extent, because touchscreens used to be really, really difficult. I don't know if anybody here has been building touchscreen devices for more than, say, 3 years. Anybody? They used to be really expensive, right? I mean, if you wanted one, and particularly if it was not a common size, you would really pay a lot because there weren't very many of them. They were all produced by basically one company, and you had to pay a lot to get them. These days, touchscreens are not expensive. Well, relatively at least, they're affordable because they're mass-produced now for the mobile industry. So that means if you're building a ticketing machine or something, and you have kind of an average tablet-sized screen, you have a relatively easy time of getting that technology at a reasonable price point. So these things, that's what I call economies of scale. It just means a lot of the stuff is being produced, which gets the price down. So that means we have that technology available now to build it into devices. So that's a big, big change. And it changes how we have to make software, because these things become increasingly like mobile devices. They have touchscreens, they have connectivity, they have all this stuff in them. As we said in the security context yesterday, that's actually a big problem, because all of the functionality in there is, kind of cobbled together often, and it's not very well integrated. But people expect the experience that they have on their smartphone on pretty much anything they interact with now, whether it is, the thing that drives the parking gate up and down, or whether it's how you manage your blinds in your conference room. You just have that expectation that it's going to be a touchscreen and it's going to be intuitive and nice and good looking and smooth, right? So most of you probably have your marketing department tell you, can you make it look more like the iPhone, right? That's basically what everybody needs to be doing now. And I don't know about you guys, but a few years ago, we got away with some pretty crap software, right? In terms of how it looked. I mean, the expectation that people had was Microsoft Excel. And let's face it, that's not the prettiest thing in the world. Now the expectation is iPhone. So the bar has been raised. We all have to make better software, in the sense it needs to be more usable, it needs to be more performant, it needs to just work better, and at the same time it needs to be cheaper. So this is something that mobile is giving us. It's giving us pressure, if you will, but it's also giving us a lot of opportunity. So that's kind of a big picture thing that's happening right now, I think. I put cloud in here because this is supposed to be a business talk, and I would be amiss if I did not have the word cloud in it anywhere. I think I would be fired from the extraordinary league of business gentlemen if I didn't. So yes, of course, there is this thing called the cloud, whatever you mean by that. What I mean by that is stuff moves to the server, right? Which is where it was in the 70s when I started computing. So yeah, we're back all the way around on the big wheel, right? No. So computation moves to the server side. Functionality and data moves to the server side. The clients are becoming more connected. They can readily access that stuff. So it's sometimes nicer to just have the data centrally. You have more devices interacting with server-side systems. They need to be federated, and data needs to be combined. Data needs to be accessed by all of them. So there's this trend of moving stuff up into the sky, where the magical servers sit on a cloud and look down upon us. Or you just put it in a rack somewhere. So I hope we all agree that this is something that we're seeing as a trend, and it's also impacting how we build devices, because, again, we need connectivity to do that. That connectivity needs to be cheap. We need to have bandwidth, and we have systems that no longer stand by the side of the road in a box and do their thing. They have become much more complex. And also, they talk to other systems that also obviously have software on them. May that be mobile phones or server-side systems. So you're no longer in your little metal box on your own, talking to no one, much like some developers. That was unkind, I'm sorry. Supposed to be a developer joke for business people, but hey, didn't work, okay. BRIC, that's another one of those acronyms people with an MBA like to throw around, meaning Brazil, Russia, India, and China, so those big emerging markets. You all have heard that one before. There is simply the fact that there are a lot of them out there, and they are buying a lot of stuff. They're buying a lot more stuff than we are buying, because they don't have any yet. We all already have a car and a mobile phone, so if you're making cars and mobile phones, you're not going to sell them to a lot of us, because we only buy them every few years. But most of these people don't have that stuff yet, so they buy a lot of it because there's still new markets to open up, and that's obviously something that drives a lot of demand in a lot of the industries that we are all in. So that can't be neglected, and it's actually playing to Qt's strengths, as we will see in a little bit. The Internet of Things, or M2M, machine to machine. Anybody know what that means? It's another. I know at least one MBA in here. Kristen, are you here? There you are. You're supposed to know this stuff, right? So the Internet of Things, that's this idea that, your toothbrush and your washing machine are all connected to the Internet, and they all talk to each other. And again, this drives some of the same things. You have to have connectivity, you have to talk to a different system, it needs to be cheap, it needs to be commodity, you need to make a lot of it. So all of these things are combining to produce what I think are pretty interesting times for people making software. So, desktop. Good old desktop. How many of you target the desktop, among other things, or exclusively? Yes. So Yeah. If you listen to the media, then the desktop is dead, 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 and dead. It is absolutely pointless. Everybody's on mobile devices. Nobody makes any money on the desktop. In fact, all the numbers are crashing. You see these graphs of, market share going down. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible. And the desktop is just nowhere to be found. Well, as my friend Mirko, who's an economics lecturer here in Berlin, likes to point out, that's confusing static analysis and dynamic analysis, because while the trend is downward and while market share is decreasing, current market share is actually really, really high. So the desktop is still very, very relevant. This is from September 2014, and it's the overall scanning the whole internet. What do people actually use today, operating system-wise? Stat counter, cool site if you want shiny graphs of current data. They didn't pay me to say this, but then I didn't pay them to do this either. So if you look closely, I hope you can read it. Of course there's Android, of course there's iOS, but there is also a lot of Win 7, a lot of Windows XP, a lot of Mac OS. And if you combine them, they still are predominantly what people use on the internet, and probably also off the internet, because unlike iOS and Android, you can actually use the desktop platforms off the internet, and there are a lot of systems out there that do that, which don't even show up in this graph. So today, and for the foreseeable future, the desktop is actually still very relevant, at least in my mind, and the numbers seem to support that. Why is that interesting for us? Well, if you look at the desktop, we here still know how to do that. If you look at the stats for sign up for developer days, the majority of you, and it's reflected in this room, target the desktop, amongst other things, but they definitely still target the desktop. And I can confirm that from our own customer base. We still have more than half of our business on the desktop. So Qt is still, of course, very strong there. It's where it comes from. It's what it was originally intended to do. So yeah, we have a really strong technical offering on the desktop. And because everybody only looks at the first chart, we are in a pretty good spot here, because as we shall see, the others are looking 2 years into the future or 5 years into the future and are saying, well, this Windows thing, we kind of got to get a new one out, but are we really trying very, very hard? Have you looked at Windows 10? When was the last significant innovation on macOS? Desktop, not iOS. Can anybody remember? Where are they at now? 10 dot something? So my point being, because if you're running a publicly traded company that is all about growth and where you're going in the future, and that's what drives the price, the stock price, you're looking at the trends. You're looking at tomorrow. You're looking at where are we going? Where's Windows on mobile? Where's Microsoft on mobile? Where's Microsoft on the Internet of Things? Where's macOS on the Internet of Things? They're not looking at how do we make people happy now. They're definitely not investing in their toolkits for the desktop. They're definitely not investing in application development on the desktop. They're arguably not even investing in development tools for the desktop, which is good, because that means if you look at the desktop, Windows, say, you've got .NET, you've got Silverlight, XAML, all deprecated. To be honest, I don't know what the current suggested technology for making GUI on the Windows desktop is. Can anybody authoritatively answer that? Forms. No, Forms is deprecated. Does anybody actually know what you're supposed to use to make Windows applications, even if you're only targeting Windows?
Yeah, Qt.
Well, Tuka, thank you very much. That was a leg up. My point precisely. Not even Microsoft knows, right? They don't have a clear communication strategy. If none of us know what we should use to develop for Windows, they have a problem. But the problem is they don't care, right? Because they don't really care about the desktop at this point. Point being, there isn't even a competitive offering if you're only developing for Windows. Nothing that is current and on par in terms of feature set with Qt. So even if you're only making desktop software, Qt is actually, even already today, a really good choice. There is stuff, of course, that still works, like the .NET stuff. It's good, don't get me wrong. The .NET stuff and the CLI and all of that, that's good stuff if you're only targeting Windows. It's very powerful. It's pretty big. If that's not a problem for you, fine. So if you're only on Windows, you can still use that stuff. But whether that will keep holding up over the next few years, I very much have my doubts, because there's clearly no investment in it. On the Mac, there was things like Coca and Carbon, the UI technologies on the Mac. they also are not seeing significant investment, actually barely any investment as far as I can tell. Because all of the money is on iOS, right? That's where the interesting growth and the new and the future and all the shiny stuff is. So on the Mac desktop, while Qt traditionally, to be honest, hasn't been super strong, the rest of the stuff isn't that great anymore either if you look at competitive technology. So on the Mac, I think we can hold our own. Just on the Mac, if you're only focusing Mac. And there's people who do that already. And this will get worse, I think. Because the Mac tends to be more and more like iOS, right? OS X is kind of converging into this like almost like iOS type thing. Which is nice, but not if you're making music management software where you have 3 monitors and you need to have a lot of data and you need to do the desktop thing, right? So then there is this graveyard of aging and dying technologies. If there are any people in there who have had the misery of working with Motif, I know at least Calabac there has that, or MFC, I have the scars to prove it. Delphi, I know there are some people running around the conference who've been working with Delphi, which I actually liked back in the day. Germans seem to like Delphi. I don't know what it is about that. There's things like GTK, GTK plus, FLTK. There's Swing and AWT on the Java side. There's WX widgets, which is still kind of around. There is Adobe's technology, so Flash and Air and Flex, and pretty much like with the Windows technologies, I can't tell you which is the one that you're supposed to be using right now, or whether any of them are still even supported. If you can tell me, please do. As far as I know, all of them are deprecated. So none of this stuff really is an option if you're developing for desktop, is it? Or have any of you considered any of these with any level of seriousness? Okay. So feature parity, definitely nowhere to be found if you compare it with Qt on the desktop. So you could still do what some people do, and that's just, do it all yourself. Raw, OpenGL, we have some really good developers. They can just, build this stuff from the ground up. We'll be poking the GPU until it bleeds. We'll make our own toolkit. There are people, the native guys, for example, upstairs, Native Instruments, they make really, really complex software with all their own UI, or have traditionally done so. The fact that they're exhibiting here tells you something about how well that is going. So it's really, really expensive and really, really difficult to do your own thing, right? Nobody really wants to do that anymore. There's no differentiation in doing your own toolkit. The GL stuff is tough. It's hard to find people who do it well. It's really not fun at all. So there's really no level of tooling, and it's a nightmare to maintain. And those who have been doing it can attest to that. That's why they're flocking to Qt. So that's not really an option either. The web technologies, yeah, you could use the web stuff, of course, right? And some people do that too. You could use stuff like the Censure products. You could use Apache Cordova, which used to be called PhoneGap. Or I think it's still called PhoneGap, and one sits on top of the other. I'm not entirely sure. Something like jQuery, what the cool kids use. There's a lot of people in Berlin who really like jQuery, and it's fine for what it does. But on the desktop, is that really something you want to use to build, your big 3D medical data visualization thing or your seismic data analysis program? I don't think those technologies are really suited to the desktop use case. And we've seen some people try and fail to do that. Have you gone down that road by any chance, any of you? No. Doesn't seem very inviting, does it? So, in summary, I think right now Qt's the only feature-rich, modern, native, cross-platform solution. If you need efficiency, if you need big data, if you have high-performance demands, and you want to do it from one source, there literally is nothing else out there. And even if you're targeting only one of them, the native competition on both Mac and Windows is not terribly much to write home about at this point, and I anticipate it will get worse. So I think on the desktop, we actually have a really, really good position right now, because everybody else is doing us the favor of not looking at the desktop very much. You're free to disagree afterwards in the Q&A. Okay, let's look at embedded. Embedded is definitely growing for Qt. I mean, you've heard that in Lars's keynote, and lots of the exhibition out there is around embedded. So that's definitely something that Qt is going into. And if you're not making embedded devices, I know embedded guys, can you just roughly, how many of you are in embedded? Yeah, it's just a few. So if you're not in embedded, you might have completely missed this because you're not looking at it, but it's absolutely true. Every single one of the embedded system providers out there is using Qt at this point, bar none. It is the standard toolkit for embedded at this point, which means unless you're absolutely just doing your own random raw GL, visualize one little thing and have no UI around it whatsoever, those people tend to still do that sometimes in raw GL. But if you have any kind of interactive UI, you're very, very, very likely to be doing it with Qt at this point. And for products out there, that's maybe not true yet. For products in development, it is certainly true. Now, you could say I have observation bias because by definition, the people who come to us are using Qt. So 100% of my customers are using Qt. That's not a big surprise, is it? But it's actually really true if you look at the industry at large. We do work with people like QNX very, very closely. The Qt company, I'm not going to say Digi. I'm trying to get through this talk without saying Digi once. Now I've said it twice. Damn! But hopefully you guys can confirm that if you talk to the other operating system vendors in the embedded space, they are definitely very, very keen, and they perceive it as the go-to solution for the embedded space. It's usually, to be fair, combined with OpenGL for the heavy lifting, big data stuff, 3D models and things like that, which is perfectly fine. That's what GL does best. The nice thing about Qt is it has excellent integration for GL, so that's actually reasonably easy to do. That makes Qt very, very attractive to all these people who do a lot of data visualization. It's also very often combined with HTML5. That is because if you are a technology kind of businessy type of person, you must be under a ginormous rock not to have been told by pretty much everybody around you that HTML5 is the solution. The cross-platform future is called HTML5. Absolutely everybody seemed to think that, let's say a year ago or 2 years ago. We are now doing quite a few projects that we like to call rescued from the web, where people have attempted to do this with HTML5 only. So I'm not saying that it isn't useful to have these HTML5 technologies in your Qt application as one aspect of what you're doing. But if you're trying to build a whole HTML5 solution, you will hit the limitations of that very, very quickly. My favorite example is QNX. They built this showcase UI for their car entertainment system called QNX Car. It's a really shiny HMI. It has everything you would expect in a car, media player, mapping, all the usual stuff. They built that entirely in HTML5. And these are some really, really good developers. It's not that they were not good at it. They built this to the best of their ability. They made it as fast as they possibly could because it's a showcase thing and it's supposed to show people, look how cool QNX is. When they were done, they decided to rewrite it in Qt. And that's what they have done. And the Qt version boots in a fraction of the time, is much faster, feels better all around. And it's just smaller footprint, overall better on any measure. But it still has HTML5 inside it because that makes a lot of sense for things like there's something coming in from the web, like some sort of a weather widget or some content that is being provided externally by people who use web technologies. They don't want to be writing QML, although arguably they should, of course. But I mean, let's face it, if you need to find somebody to make a little bit of UI in the middle of your program, it is totally reasonable to say, let's get, relatively affordable HTML5 expert so we don't have to get not quite as affordable QML expert to do the same job. It looks the same and it doesn't make any technical difference anyway. So I think HTML5 has its place, particularly as part of Qt overall. I've been saying that for a few years. People are actually starting to believe me now, I think. On embedded, obviously, you need to be you have fewer resources, you need to be energy efficient, which means you need to be hardware accelerated, particularly on the graphics. And again, that's something where Qt really shines. Lots of other toolkits do run on embedded at some level, but very few of them actually have really good performance and GPU acceleration. That's a totally unique thing. We have really good OpenGL support. Lars, a few years ago, I don't know, he's sitting back there, that was probably not only his decision, but partly his decision, made the call that Qt 5 would require OpenGL 2 hard dependency, which is now being softened again, but at the time, that was a really bold thing to do. Deciding that we would give up support for systems that don't have OpenGL 2 support, that was a gutsy move. It's paying us off really handsomely because Qt by far is the best at interfacing with GL because we've done it from day one. It's really built from the ground up to support these technologies. GLES is the standard in embedded for hardware accelerated graphics. DirectX is nowhere to be seen. So, Lars, you were right. Thank you very much. I had my doubts, but you were right. So this again is playing to our strengths. So people need reasonable disk footprint, they need fast boot up, they need reasonable RAM footprint, they don't want to load the CPU too much, and they need accelerated GPU support. If you go looking for something out there that does that, there really is nothing else out there but Qt. And so I know some of you, I guess, have done exactly that and have come exactly to that conclusion. So if you are yet to make that call, you might or might not tell your boss to just trust your judgment and do it right away. Okay, and the funniest thing for us, because we work on the Qt support for Windows Embedded, Windows CE and so on, the funniest thing for us is that even Microsoft at this point, because Windows CE doesn't have a competitive UI solution at all. You can do really basic widget stuff, but if you're doing anything that is any fancy, you can't do it with the stuff that they ship. So even Microsoft is now telling their customers via their partners to use Qt to do that on Windows CE. That's a pretty strong statement, I think. Okay, so far for embedded. Again, feel free to disagree with me later on, but I want to look at mobile first. For mobile, if you're looking only at mobile and you're making an app for some definition of that, you're basically looking at two things. You're looking at iOS and Android. If you're in the US, you might be looking just at iOS. If you're in Europe, you might be looking just at Android, because it's kind of more iOS that side of the Atlantic, more Android on that side of the Atlantic. But most people look at both. So if you're faced with the question of how do I write my app that is going to support iOS and Android, it is entirely reasonable to say, well, I can get iOS developers at really reasonable rates. In my friendly little app shop around the corner here in Berlin, there's millions of them. No, not millions, but a lot of them. Finding an iOS developer in Berlin, you just walk into any coffee shop, right? It's not a problem. Readily available. The same for Android. Try finding a Qt developer in Berlin. I can tell you from experience, and everybody who's exhibiting out there has the same problem. There are none. If there were any, they would be working for us. So it's very reasonable to say, why should I use Qt where I have trouble finding people to do it well, when I can have an abundance of iOS developers who are pretty cheap and an abundance of Android developers who are also pretty cheap? To do it natively on each platform, it's 2. It's not like it's 7, right? So, yes, had that thought. How many of you have native iOS apps? Or native Android apps? Yep, yeah. Probably for reasons like that, because somebody in management made exactly that determination, and that's entirely reasonable. If you're only targeting mobile, my point is that's probably not where Qt is really, where you want to go. Because if you are only targeting mobile, why would you? Honestly, there is no benefit that I can see, cost-wise, complexity-wise. Likely you're sharing the logic on the back end in the server anyway. You make a little iOS UI, you make a little Android UI, you are on your merry way. Knock yourself out. I don't think this is where Qt needs to go. And it's a misconception to think that we added iOS and Android support because of this. And Lars, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not the point. It's not? Good, thank you. So, what is the point then? As I said in the beginning, we have these trends. We have this, everything is connected to the internet, everything is talking to everything. People expect to be accessing their systems from mobile devices alongside the other ways of interfacing with their software. So, if you have something running on the desktop or your laptop, like the DJs upstairs at the native booth, yes, they also have a smartphone in their pocket, and yes, they also want to use that as an input controller to their software. They want to use it to see maybe part of what's on screen. So this is what I call the second screen phenomenon. Mobile devices are becoming a second screen, an additional interface, additional display, and additional controllers to embedded systems and desktop systems. Because people have this powerful hardware in their pocket and they want to use it. If you're a surgeon, you want to look at the preview of your x-rays on your phone. That doesn't mean that you want an app. You want a preview of what's running on your embedded imaging device or your desktop PC. That's a completely different use case. So for that, you need code that runs on all of the systems that you want to share, maintain only once, have a performant way of getting it on screen and get the events back the other way. Ta-da! That's where Qt is really powerful. So I think the mobile story for Qt is that. It's not apps. Apps is a total red herring. Again, feel free to disagree with me later on. But if you're already on Qt, hey, there might be some additional revenue to be squeezed out on one of these lovely other platforms that you now magically also support. I have history with Blackberry, so we were part of the team that built the the BlackBerry 10 platform, and there's a lot of Qt in there, so I kind of have a soft spot for it. I'd like a BlackBerry passport, please. So since my boss is in the back of the room, buy me one. I think they make nice phones, but I mean, obviously I'm the target audience for that stuff. So, and there's quite a few people who still run around with a BlackBerry. BlackBerry 10, while not the most successful platform in the world, is still relevant in some industries. And if you are targeting them, that might be a nice side effect. It is not more, to be clear. It's a side effect. It's not what you're looking at. Windows Phone, yep, going there too. If I had to make a guess, I would still believe that Windows Phone is going to be huge. Why? Because Microsoft has a lot of money and they're not spending it anywhere else. So unless they're total morons, which they have proven not to be in the past, let me be clear, they will be successful with this. It might take time, but they will push this into the market. So the Windows Phone, whatever you want to call it, that basic platform on tablets and Surface and all that stuff, that will be relevant, I can assure you. At least, I mean, that's if I were to bet, that's where my bet would go, because they have to get something, right? And it's not just going to be Xbox, right? So, unless you don't like the Xbox, in which case I apologize. Any kind of other gaming console fanatics in here that will throw stuff at me now. Okay, but I mean, my assumption is Windows Phone will be growing, it will be relevant, and it might be nice to be able to reach it once it does, because now you have a third platform, and then the whole iOS, Android, oh, there's this other one that's starting to become a little bit more muddy. So keep your options open if you can. There's the Yolla people that fell out of Nokia and seemed to land on a cushion, or not. I don't know. There's things like Ubuntu Phone. The Canonical people have been trying to build a phone and a TV and a watch. And did that ever actually materialize? I'm sorry, if you're working for Canonical, you can also throw stuff at me. But I don't think that phone actually exists. So there's other people trying to build phones with Qt. Tizen also has Qt support. I don't think they use it primarily. That's the Samsung thing that they're putting on the watches and stuff. It does have Qt on it, but I don't think they use Qt for the primary HMI at this point. There are people building Qt apps for Tizen, however, and it's perfectly functional there. Okay. Is it?
As far as I know, that Tizen is a merge of Migo and Bada. And so you can use the old Bada SDK, you can run streaming to Qt. So if you develop software for it, you might want to use Qt.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they are successful, and it's Samsung, so who knows? It's not like they're out successful in other places. They might get this to a relevant market share, and then it would be nice to be able to target that too. So, you know, at least there's some perspective there. Okay. So, not looking too bad on desktop as far as I can tell. Looking pretty damn good on embedded. Kind of okay on mobile, really, if you're not actually focusing on the app use case. Now, since this is a suit kind of a talk, hopefully most of you know that making money from apps is not easy. You could say it is virtually impossible. So if your business is to make money out of something, very likely you are not making apps. You know, that's yeah. The logic in that statement will bite me in the ass at some point, but you get my point, right? Very, very likely you are not primarily monetizing your app on iOS or Android. Yes? Okay. So let's look at risks, because it's not all roses, obviously. There must be some risks, otherwise everybody would already be using it. So the risks for Qt, as opposed to using Qt, there is at least a perceived lack of standardization, by which I mean it's not HTML5. I'm not saying that it's necessarily particularly useful to start making a standard that includes Qt, be that the C++ standard or, you know, something like HTML5 committee that defines this is now the blessed toolkit that we all shall use. But the perception, if you're talking to decision makers, is it is less standard than HTML5. Now, anybody with any technical insight will call that immediately, but those people tend to not be people with a deep level of technical insight. So they look at, I'm reading about this HTML5 stuff, it's supposed to be the standard for cross-platform HMI, and you're showing me this Qt thing, what is that? It is made by an obscure company in Scandinavia that I've never heard of. It has a weirdly hard-pronounced name. Yeah, so that's a perception thing. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to mitigate it. The only way to mitigate it is to make as much noise as we possibly can about Qt being the dominant platform, at least on embedded, a good option on mobile, and pretty much the only thing out there on the desktop. So if we get that word out more, I think this will become less of a problem. So it's mostly communication, I think, that this can be mitigated with. The lack of coherent and comprehensive tooling. I know that at this point, some people in the room will probably pull out the chairs and throw them in my general direction. I don't mean to say that the Qt tooling is bad. What I mean to say is that people have vertical industries that they work in, automotive, medical, whatever. There is already a lot of tooling in those verticals, and integrating that with Qt is not easy. That's what I mean by comprehensive and cohesive. It's not a nicely integrated tooling offering. If you're used to developing for Windows CE with Visual Studio, you have a really smooth ride, right? You have really, really nice everything in one thing kind of development experience. It is nowhere near as smooth if you're using Qt right now. This is certainly something that is being addressed as part of the development of Qt and the tooling, so everybody, I think, is aware of this. But if you look at today, and we decided to look at today, then right now the tooling is not comprehensively on par with what you have if you are addressing either just Mac. I mean, have you developed for iOS? Yeah, or Mac OS for that matter. That stuff is smooth, right? It's not painless to work for iOS, but if you look at the tooling experience, it's pretty damn spiffy, right? So we are not quite there yet, I think, which is a risk because people, that's the first thing they see. If they evaluate Qt, they get these tools and it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, so that's something to work on, which is being worked on. So I'm not horribly bothered with that, but there's some work yet to be done. We're also doing a lot of work on that as part of Gamma Ray and other things. The big one, and I think most of you have probably asked yourself that question, at least after or during Lars's keynote yesterday, how can we make sure that the development of Qt is sustainably funded? I think, if anything, this is the single biggest risk for Qt at this point. Because technology-wise, you know, we've made some really good calls collectively as a community. We're actually in a really, really good spot. Can we live long enough to reap the benefits? That's, I think, a key question. And Lars asked the same question in the keynote yesterday. So if these guys don't make enough money to fund all that development and to pay the 180 salaries, whatever it is, I'm looking at Lars because, you know, something like that, we are all in trouble, right? Because then this is not going to continue to be competitive and develop as quickly as we need it to. It's not going to close these gaps the way that we need them to be closed. So how can we fix this? Well, one option is paying for Qt. Thank you very much. Another option is, of course, to contribute in other ways to Qt, or both, ideally, and to make sure that you convince those in your organization who are making strategic decisions on the basis of Qt, they are aware of the impact of this problem, which can be either scary or something you simply need to address and mitigate. If you tell them, hey, you're basing your next product line on this thing, can you please work with these guys to make sure that it'll be around in 5 years or 10 years? Too few people are doing that right now, and it's a big, big problem. So I'm not trying to, be coy about that. It is something that we will need to fix. Hopefully, to some extent, it can fix itself simply by growth. If more people use it and pay for it, because if the percentage of people who pay hopefully increases, if many more people use it and that percentage at least doesn't go down, we're cool. But we're not there yet. There are some non-technical platform barriers, shall we say, so some things that might prevent us from getting it right technically. There are barriers to the app stores, which we had already had for iOS. We had to jump through some hoops to get to the iOS store. Windows Phone is not going to be a very welcoming platform, shall we say, I would expect. They're actually already better than they used to be. We can now more easily get to their platform, but arguably some people will make it more difficult than others for Qt to be competitive on their platform. So far, the technical team has always surmounted that. We have yet to find a platform that wasn't conquerable, including Symbian. And those of you who have been around at those times know how deeply, deeply, deeply painful that was. But it did work in the end. There are phones, what was the one that ran on Symbian? I forget. Not the N9, the other one. There was one phone that was had Qt on it, but still Symbian. I don't remember.
7, right?
Yeah, 7 phones even, yeah. There you go. So it actually did work, and it was competitive for a while at least. Yeah, there's patents, there's things that we just can't fight on a technical level. We might have issues with that, I don't know. Arguably, we are not big enough yet to be on the radar of the patent litigation dragons out there. So far, to my knowledge, there haven't been any patent litigation attempts towards Qt. Maybe I stand corrected if that's not true, because I'm not inside the Qt company, but as far as I know, we are vulnerable on that front, as is everybody who makes software these days, because software patents are, in my personal opinion, a huge, huge, huge liability for the industry at large. And we are, like everybody else, vulnerable to that. If somebody comes around who really wants to kill Qt, if they have a big patent portfolio, you can see the smoke rising within a couple of years. Sorry, but that's the reality. For everybody, it's not just a Qt problem. The next platform that Microsoft comes up with, the next platform that Apple comes up with, as I said, our track record is really good, but they might actually make it so hard that we cannot reach them anymore. And then, of course, we might be in a position where the value proposition becomes less attractive. I don't know. The guys who work on this, how afraid are you of this? Not very much?
They need games and stuff. Pretty much.
Good point, yes.
If they can run Angry Birds,
they can run Qt.
Yeah.
Awesome. I should have asked you for that line before. I would love to have the line on here. If they need Angry Birds, then they need Qt. That's perfect. I'll steal that and use it from now on. Thank you, Tuka. It's, Maya, good point, yes. Yeah. 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 So yeah, we might have enough of a footprint already. That's, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, there might be enough of a footprint already, enough things using Qt for the platform makers to not be, well, they can't afford not to have Qt run there because too many big customers are already using it. So if we have that critical mass already, you're right, then we don't have that problem to the same extent. I hope we do. I mean, is Maya enough of a driver to keep Microsoft from shutting us out? For Apple, yes. Yeah. Yeah, and if the sound guys all start using Qt, as they seem to be doing, that will drive the Mac definitely. So let's hope. So the risks of using Qt as opposed to risks for Qt that I can see. The biggest one in my estimation is talent availability, meaning there aren't enough Qt developers out there. That's good news for you if you're a Qt developer, because your market price is rising. But of course, it's a big problem in the long run. If we don't have enough people who know this technology and can help people build stuff with it, then it's not going to be successful. It's as easy as that. So how do you fix that? Well, teach more people Qt. We're doing our best to do it at conferences like this, but that's 200 or 300 at a time. We're not going to build a revolution that way. We're making resources available online to make it as easy as possible to do that. The whole Qt ecosystem is doing that. We're doing lots of presentations and things at other conferences to raise awareness and to teach people. Qt's not terribly difficult to learn if you are a competent C++ developer. The problem is competent C++ developers are also extremely rare. So it's kind of a chain problem there. Why are there so few C++ developers? Well, because the universities are not producing any. What are they producing instead? They're producing people that know the tools that were given to them by large organizations. They do Java because they're all running on Solaris donations from Sun in the 80s and 90s. Or they're doing .NET because they're all running on donated Windows boxes and Windows licenses and Visual Studio licenses and free developer seats from Microsoft for anybody who's in any university in the Western world. That stuff is very, very powerful, and it's very hard to fight, because if, like me, you're going to Technical University Berlin and you're saying, why are you not making Qt developers? I need Qt developers. Make me some. I will take them off your hands. If you build them, I will buy them. I'm not saying that in those words, but pretty much, right? And what they come back with is, well, where's your donation? Really? They can't stop doing .NET because then they're not going to get the free licenses for Windows anymore that they desperately need, because the whole system is so underfunded that they can't even buy desktop licenses. I'm not kidding you. That's the reality out there. I don't know if it's just Germany or just Berlin, but I'm afraid it's not. So the education system is not spitting out the developers we need. And as a Qt ecosystem, if we are to go down that road, we need to fix that somehow. I would very much like to hear your input on it. The best that I've come up with is to go and evangelize wherever I can, talk to the universities as much as I can, work with them, offer internships, pay people well for the internships so they actually take them, show people that there are lots of jobs in Berlin. My estimation right now is that there are between 200 and 300 open Qt development jobs in Berlin alone. And there's a single department in any of the 4 universities offering a single course on even C++, let alone Qt. The Native Instruments guys are really trying hard. They're offering classes on smaller universities. The Hasso-Plattner Institute in Potsdam is starting to pick up on it a little bit, but it's really an uphill struggle. So if there's anything you can do with your organization to help fix that, we would all be very thankful and better off. The next one is a little bit controversial. I think QML is dangerously easy. Why do I see that? Because if you download Qt, you have some development board, you put Qt on it, you start hacking away in Qt Creator, you're building your stuff in QML, and it's shiny and it works. Nuno is sounding vigorously because he's a designer, and he's really in love with QML at this point because it allows him to cut the damn developers out of the loop. He can now do it himself. Which, and you will forgive me for saying this, is extremely stupid because Nuno is a graphics guy. He's not a developer. So the code that he's producing, you know I love you, so I will say this, is shite. And you're the first to admit it. The problem with this is that if we have people who do not know anything about software, making complex, connected, insecure embedded devices, that are putting us all at risk, that's a problem. Right? So I think we need to do some educating and some evangelizing, help people like designers learn proper software, not just how to make a pretty HMI, teach them when to bring in the developers so that these systems actually become, reasonably secure, manageable, decent pieces of software. I don't know if this will break our neck or not, but it's definitely something we're seeing. There's a lot of really, really bad QML code out there. Really bad. And that's, for us, that's a problem because it doesn't perform well, it doesn't work that great, it's brittle, it's being attacked security-wise. So I'm not sure. I mean, again, not a particularly acute problem, but we've made it so easy to build touchscreen-based embedded devices that pretty much any idiot can do it. And now every idiot is doing it. There is, kind of related to that, there is this problem with the blind trust. Qt is increasingly seen as something like .NET. It comes from a vendor, it does its thing, and you kind of don't look inside. It's this black box that you... The JDK of C++, excellent. Another thing that I will steal and use henceforth. So yeah, there's a bit of that emerging now where people are, yeah, it's Qt. There's something inside Qt that went wrong. I really have no idea what it did, and I really don't want to go there because there be dragons. Which is, again, not ideal because you can actually look inside Qt because you have the source code. This is a big differentiator and something we should value. Instead, there is an increasing kind of a black box perception of Qt. A part of the tool, part of the platform layer kind of perception that is a little bit dangerous because it wastes a big benefit of Qt, the ability to look inside and see how it works and fix it and use it the right way. I'm not saying this is a ginormous problem, but it's something that we see coming up. And then another one, which we are fixing collectively, I think, is the technology mismatch with the web technologies, because the web technologies, by way of having to also support cloud-side, server-side, website stuff, and by way of integrating web technologies into Qt HMIs, we do need to interface with the web stuff. We do need to be JavaScript first-class citizen. We do need good WebSockets, web channel, all of this stuff, which, thankfully, collectively, we are building. So and all of the players in the ecosystem realize this and are investing in this area. So there's increasingly better match between the web technologies and Qt. Not at the same, I'd say Qt and OpenGL, really kind of cool. Qt and web technologies, getting there. Not there yet. So that's something that we need to fix, I think. Not risks of using Qt. So this is another one of those show your boss at your leisure slides. So what's not a problem with Qt is you're not locked into any vendor. This stuff will be around. It will be available for download for eternity. There is no problem with it going away because somebody went bankrupt. Not even the Qt company. Because the code is out there and it will be available and it will be supportable and maintainable by other people. So that's a big one. Because if you've ever been locked into MFC or Flash, you've seen that, right? And you never want to see it again. Platform lock-in, similarly. If you're using MFC and Mac was not an issue for you, but then Apple starts to be really successful and people are buying Macs. And now I think the laptop market share for Macs is something around, I don't know, 30%, I think is the last number I heard. Definitely relevant. If you're making consumer software for the desktop, you cannot ignore the Mac anymore. If you were on MFC, tough luck. So whatever the next platform is that emerges, who knows, maybe BlackBerry makes tablets and it becomes really relevant all of a sudden. They don't have a particularly stellar track record with making tablets. It's a bad example, but do you know what I mean? There might be a totally different platform that emerges for completely unrelated reasons. You don't want to be locked into something that will not allow you to go there, whatever it is. Getting stuck on a dead toolkit, that's kind of related. Some of you are still on Delphi or on Motif, and they're dead, and I really mean that. Although even Motif is not dead. Peter Winston, who sells it still, says he's still selling I don't know how many licenses a year, so it's... but yeah, you know what I mean. You don't want to be stuck on something that's just dead, like Flex or whatever. And again, this is unlikely to happen because even if the vendor dies and even if the platforms go away that you're currently using, you still have it available. You can still kind of code your way out of it if you want to. It's very difficult to do with Delphi, for example. The monoculture thing, this is simply diversity is a strength, I think, for any kind of, not just technology, but just in general. Avoid monoculture is a basic truism of pretty much any business decision. And Qt is the opposite of monoculture, right? So not a problem there. There are some strategic dead ends. What I mean by that is, what happens to .NET is up to the whims of strategic decision-making by people who primarily make their money off of Office and the Xbox. So you might be impacted by strategy decisions that are completely unrelated to what you're actually being impacted by. And that might lead you into a dead-end situation that you can't really control. So if you're using something that is produced by people who make these kinds of decisions, Nokia, sorry, a little dig there. Do you know what I mean? You might just be hit with a clue stick and never knew what hit you. Okay. So the cloud thing, opportunities, right? I think the cloud thing is a godsend, not because I particularly like the word, but cloud means that the cross-platform story becomes really, really relevant again. And a cross-platform, I mean embedded desktop, mobile, all of it, all the platforms, not just the desktop platforms or just the mobile platforms, all of them, because you need to have the stuff available from all these different endpoints, and the only way to do that, if you're using this kind of a cloud-based, I have my data centrally available thing, is to have software running on all of them that access that data. This is something that really plays to Qt's strengths. Qt does really, really good networking. It's pretty efficient there. It's easy to do. It's much, much easier to do that in a nice cross-platform way than with pretty much anything I've tried, at least. And the thing with the cloud is the usability of it tends to be not very good, because if you have stuff on the web and your connectivity isn't that great, you get these, damn, it reset the form again. Oops, I really wanted to order that train ticket, but then I went into a tunnel type of situation. So the only way to avoid that is good native local state keeping. You have to get stuff off the cloud, have it locally available so you can work with it meaningfully, and then upload it back or sync it or maintain the local state in some way. This is not easy to do, and you need a really good toolkit to do it if you want to have good usability, which people do want. So I think Qt is really good at this, and it's one of the things that will make it be a driver for people to adopt Qt to fix this kind of cloud, emerging cloud problem. The brick problem, we support lots and lots of regions, regionalities, languages, and localities that the others don't. Windows has a lot less reach than Qt in terms of where you can localize and translate and so on. So we look much better in right to left languages than the others out there. So we can more easily and more openly leverage community contribution to support languages that nobody else supports. I don't know how many languages Qt and KDE now support. It's incredible. Pretty much anything out there that anybody speaks that can still communicate with the outside world probably has a KDE desktop fully translated. So this is a great, great strength because it allows us to go into all of these niche markets that for market share reasons, people with the big systems are not targeting. So it's not economically worthwhile to translate Windows into obscure Indian dialect. it is worthwhile for Qt, and even if nobody wants to pay directly, the community can be enabled to do it themselves, giving us even more reach. So this is a really powerful mechanism by way of community, and it means that these emerging markets are much, much easier for us to reach than they are to reach for the competitors who are primarily driven by financial considerations and market shares. The IoT thing also, I think, provides us with great opportunity. Because we are the only ones who can go everywhere, pretty much. If you want to really build like these kind of federated, aggregated, cloud-based, Internet of Things connected thingies, it's really quite difficult to do that with anything but Qt, unless you really want to do very specific development on all of these platforms. So we're really quite well equipped to tackle this. So my kind of bold claim is I think Qt can become the standard middleware and UI for what is called the next billion devices. So everything that is being built now and will be connected to this Internet of Things, I think, has a good chance of running Qt. And because this is where the growth is, this is where the big numbers are, this is a really, really interesting proposition. And there is nothing else out there that can do that within the foreseeable future. So go forth. Conclusion, I think Qt's strong on the desktop for the reasons I pointed out. I think it is really, really strong on embedded. I think as those silos fall, which means that you're not just developing for desktop or just developing for embedded or just developing for mobile, having to reach across is going to be huge, and Qt's the only thing that can actually do that at this point. We're really well positioned to leverage those things that are happening in the industry, the cloud thing, the Internet of Things thing, the commoditization thing, the mobile thing. And again, nothing really else out there is able to do that at the same level. So we have a few minutes for questions. Yes?
Why didn't you compare mobile cross-platform development, for example, Unity for games?
Yeah, that's true. Yes. So the question is, why didn't I compare the mobile cross-platform solutions? There are, of course, a few. There's PhoneGap, there's Unity, there's multiple engines. The problem with them is they solve the app use case. I'm not particularly interested, as I was trying to point out, in the app use case. If you're trying to make cross-platform mobile apps, those are really good choices, but I don't think that's really where Qt is good. Right, so I didn't even try to compete with Unity because I don't feel like that's Qt is not in the running if you're looking to do cross-platform between Android and iOS at this point. You're probably going to go for something like Unity or one of the other cross-platform tools. And there's no point in even trying to compare that, I think. Please.
When talking about cross-platform development for desktop and mobile, the main competitor comes actually the web technologies. And it turns out that these are more accessible and cheaper than Qt. How can we defend Qt for the clients?
More accessible in the accessibility?
No, I mean, there is more knowledge about them. It's like Node.js, AngularJS, you get backend, you get frontend. So a lot of people knows it.
Yeah. So I don't think they are feature-wise complete enough to do both desktop and mobile with the same source base. That is our experience. They are, of course, growing. They're adding functionality all the time, so they might get to the point where they're viable for that. Right now, I don't think they're on par from a feature point of view. You have if you do web technologies for clients, you have the problem of what is the other end of that, right? Do you have a locally running server? Do you have a remote running server? So the complexity of building that whole system, not just the front end, not just the HMI, but the whole thing, the whole functionality, that is actually way more complex than if you're building it with Qt, because it's a much more monolithic and simple architecture. So our experience with the web stuff on client is that, yes, it's easy to do Node.js, but it's not easy at all to build a complex, locally running, feature-rich application for the desktop, because you need to add all kinds of other things to even get that HTML5 UI to show up, right? So if you start looking at it, it becomes a lot less easy than it seems at first, right? Because it's not just a client, right? If you're comparing...
Talent problem. Qt developers are harder to find and usually more expensive than web developers.
I have no argument to counter that. I'm sorry. That's why I had it on the risk slide. That is a problem. And, I don't have a good solution for it. That's hard to counter. Any other questions? Yes, shoot.
Yes, it's more a remark than a question. I basically joined this session to find answers to my two major problems we have with Qt. You pointed both out. It's first to find C++ programmers, not Qt programmers, but basically C++ programmers. It's easy to teach someone if he's a good C++ programmer.
Yeah.
And the second problem we have is from a commercial point of view. As Lars told us yesterday, DJI is still losing money with Qt. So the main question for us is, will DJI be able to back Qt for the future to handle this investment?
Yeah.
Another part is that, yes, we have been losing, but the good thing is that we are we are losing less and less every year. So even though this year starting from this year, we actually published the numbers, so you can look at DJI. This is a publicly listed company, so you can look at the numbers, and Qt is there as a separate segment. So in the first half, we made something like 1.3 million loss. That's less than what we made loss last year. So the direction is right.
Yeah.
But we need to invest, and there is. So we are not that far. It's not a critical thing, but it's certainly worthwhile to check the numbers.
So let me repeat the question first, so we have it on the recordings. The first question is, how do you deal with the problem of not having C++ developers available? And as I said in the presentation, I don't have a fix for this other than lobbying for C++. Jens is here, who runs a meeting C++, who's the biggest C++ conference in Europe, I think. And we're sponsoring it. You might consider doing that too, and do some groundwork on getting people interested in the basis of what we all work with. So it's helpful to try and nurture that ecosystem a little bit more. There wasn't a single C++ conference in all of Europe for years and years and years, which tells you something about the state of the C++ community in Europe. It is getting better. We're trying to nurture it. Jens is doing work. The C++ standards guys, the Boost guys are trying to get it up. But it continues to be a problem. It's not like we have a big alternative, right? So we can't do Qt on .NET, I guess. And the other question was the problem about sustainable funding of Qt. How do we fix that? As Tuka pointed out, the losses are getting less, so hopefully we're converging on sustainable. That's one. The other one is Qt, thankfully, is not ultimately reliant on a single company, because as long as there is enough demand for the technology, there will be enough money in the ecosystem to support keeping it alive, at least. It might not have great innovation anymore. The rate of innovation, the rate of growth, because of marketing spending and so on, might slow down. But I think Qt cannot die. As long as economically there is enough need, there will be enough money to fund at least what needs to be spent to keep it going. That's a little bit of a, Lars, do you want to come?
Qt has gone through a lot of changes over the last years, and some of this has been rough times in the last years, and the technology in the end is stronger than before. That's something we need to remember and see that we have that, and we have Qt being developed under non-governance model. You get the source code with either under source license or if you use get an enterprise license under a perpetual license that allows you to continue using it forever, which means you are ultimately not there are ways that to move on over each eventually. But as Peter pointed out, I think this is like huge. Yes, we're still losing money right now, but we think we are actually this will change now over next year.
Yep.
I don't think it's personally. I don't think it's
yeah, absolutely.
But it's really something that you can see as well.
Okay, just short recap for the recording. Basically, you're saying Qt has proven itself rather resilient in the past. We have weathered quite a few storms. We have gotten good at it. We hopefully weathered this one. Okay, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for showing up.